Hey guys, this is Jonathan McCormack. I'm an attachment specialist in New York, and you can find me at attachmenthealinghelp.com. But for today, I want to talk about the anxiously attached. I'll do this in two parts, and the first part will be essentially the dynamics of an anxiously attached person in a relationship, particularly with an avoidance, since that happens a lot. This is largely taken from, there's a bunch of books, they're all pretty much the same, but Jessica Baum, Baum, has a good book, Anxiously Attached. And I'll tell you the caveat. The caveat is she came to the same conclusion, says she went to relationship, to relationship, to relationship, until finally she fixed herself. She calls it her inner me, the wounded me, that's inner child work. She kind of takes an IFS approach, parts work. She has something she calls perfect nurturers, which is fine. I do the ideal parent figure protocol, which is nurturers, and a lot of somatic body work. So that's where she goes with it. But I say that because people usually want to know, what can I say to fix this relationship? To be really honest, if you're an anxiously attached person, if you're in a relationship with an avoidant, honestly, it's very hard to work out. And I don't want to say never, but it's very hard to work out. You guys know the anxious avoidant dance. You're triggering each other. The anxious person's trying to claw their way, and that sets the avoidant person off. They start back, then you get freaked out and claw more. And you're just kind of wounding each other, devouring each other. It can get very messy. Now, if the avoidant person is willing to work on themselves, yeah. But even then, if you're the anxiously attached person, you're going to be doing most of the work. And likely you're going to get resentful because you're going to be making a lot of sacrifices, So finally, Jessica Baum, she writes how after all these broken relationships, anxiously attached people get into relationships to repair themselves. They want to repair themselves. That never works, until she healed her inner self. But she had this deep need, and we all have this deep need, to know ourselves through the eyes of another, to feel supported and safe, long-term intimacy with someone. And then this person starts pulling back. If you're anxiously attached, you might have low self-esteem. Like, do I even deserve a good person? I really don't even deserve this. This is actually feels right. This feels correct that they would run away from me. They should run away from me. Who am I? I'm not worth it, And this just becomes an endless search for the relationship. They'll prove that they're lovable. This one will prove it. And of course, they cling to that reassurance out of not love, but fear and insecurity. This fear and insecurity creates these demands that actually chase the other person off. So it's kind of like an ugly thing. So the avoidant, meanwhile, their conclusion is that they have to just live life alone. Independence, self-sufficiency, above all else, because no one else will prepare for their emotional needs. But meanwhile, the anxious person, they're trying to find a mate, desperate to find someone who has that thing that they're lacking in their own being. That thing where they can finally understand themselves, because they have a hard time understanding themselves. They're not very attached to their bodies, And they're not fully in touch with the self energy. IFS, Internal Family Services, calls it self. It's something inside your best self, your true self, that can give you this compassion and this support. And you get in touch with it. In Ideal Parent Figure Protocol, we kind of use the ideal parents as a cipher for that. And you can tap into that energy. But if you don't, you will need something else. You'll need another person to get that energy from instead of your own, And, as soon as you do, the anxiously attached person finds someone, and then they're happy and good, and then new sensations come. But if he leaves me, if she leaves me, I won't survive. Well, that's pretty serious. You better put all their needs first, I mean, do whatever. Forget about your needs. Forget about you. This is survival. And that's how you'll behave. Intellectually, you're an adult. You know that. If they leave, you can find someone else. You'll be fine. You're not abandoned. The crows aren't going to pick you off. You're an adult. That doesn't matter. You feel like you're going to get abandoned, and that's how you'll act. It's a threat. It's a danger. You feel that way. And rational thinking just goes right out the window, And all of a sudden, these behaviors come in, constant texting, constant apology. I apologize. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Apologizing for everything. That's because your body's always looking for threats, constantly, and you don't feel safe. If you're anxiously attached, you just never feel safe in yourself. You're constantly asking, are you with me? Are you with me? Are you still with me? Are you with me? Are you with me? With me? Constant. It's a radar, scanning the environment, looking for any incongruity, anything. Have you had my back? You have my back? Boy, that's a lot of pressure, on the other person. But that's how the anxiously person relaxes, And you can't fake that state either. You really can't pretend. When you feel threatened, that's how you are. When the avoidant feels threatened, they shut down. The avoidant actually, you never know it, but they actually feel helpless and terrified. Because that's how they felt as a child, And so kind of to minimize the avoidant putting out that energy, they slow down. Their breathing slows down. Their heart rate slows down. Even their facial expressions, if you notice some avoidance, they're not very expressive. They're very kind of shut down. It's almost like hibernation, making themselves as small and as visible as possible. They don't even expect their partner to respond. They don't even care in the extreme cases, But that's what they were like when children. They reached out. Protest. Nothing happened. And then they just start shutting down. Then they start regulating themselves. It takes a lot of energy. You're going to need a lot of space by yourself. If you're the one regulating yourself, other things help. Fantasy, drugs, sex. Yeah, all those things help. If you're regulating yourself, all sorts of behaviors. But the solution is to be self-full. I didn't like this when I heard this. This is bad news. Richard Schwartz, Dick Schwartz, the person who came up with IFS, Internal Family Systems, he has a book called You Are the One You're Waiting For. You're the one you're waiting for. This is actually a great book. I loved it. But it was depressing when I read it. Because I was like, wait. I'm the one I'm waiting for? I gotta tell you, I know me. I'm okay. I'm all right. But I was hoping the person I was waiting for would be a lady with the lady bits and be a lot softer than me. Probably smell better than me. But I just think I can do better than me. Like, this was not even an option. I'd hear people say that you need to fix yourself. You need to do self. No. No, I want that. Because it makes me feel so good, feel so secure. And I just refuse to believe that having that self-energy is the foundation for a safe relationship. So I'm not a relationship specialist. If people want to come to me, I would say, heal all your wounded inner children. Get a secure attachment. That's what I would say. Because you can try all those other things. And believe me, people do try them. They get the nonviolent communication. They sit down and they're, all ready. And they sit down and they go, honey, I come to you joyfully from my heart to express my needs and da-da-da-da. And then they say one wrong thing or someone gets triggered. That shit goes right out the window. I could tell you, if you sit down and try and do that with a partner, both of you are insecure, one of you is going to go off script, and you're going to be sitting there like, wait, they're not, no, but we're supposed to talk without interrupting, no, but yeah, because there's like an emergency, they're getting activated, they're not going to sit there and calmly. You can only do that if you're relatively secure. That stuff helps, but the first thing you have to do is an inside job, and a lot of people never experience safety in their own bodies. They just never experience that. Their feelings get way too big, or they can barely feel anything at all. So the first thing you have to do is kind of develop the ability to notice your sensations instead of acting on them. You just act on them. A lot of that somatic meditation is getting in the body, feeling the sensations, then emotions, then beliefs. A lot of people are familiar with their beliefs, but they don't even know the feelings that came from, let alone the sensations in the body. And if you can do that, it actually helps you regulate. You can actually go back into an equilibrium more quickly if you're able just to physically sense it and consciously do so. Because a rewiring's happening. Just notice these sensations changes how you think. And you won't have to be in a constant state of hypervigilance. If you're really in tune and in touch with yourself, you don't have to be constantly looking for other people to give you signals. If you have no idea what's going on, if you're not the one regulating yourself, then yeah, you're going to be like a laser target watching someone else, because how they're behaving, how they're feeling is life or death to you. That will mean if you're going to feel good tonight or bad, devastated or whatnot. And that's also going to be your source of self-worth, If you don't have a sense of self-worth, it's going to have a hard time being compassionate to yourself, Because the quality of a relationship, it's measured by the growth both of you experience as part of the union. When you get together, are you growing? Is she growing? Are both of you growing? And that growth only happens when you feel safe enough to be with that person at times when you can be vulnerable and you can share your inner resources and expect them to get returned. Because otherwise, you'll hear people say like, "Oh, I'm just a bad judge of character." The reason I keep finding myself in the exact same relationships is how I expect to love and be loved. Sort of, but it's not your judgment. You can have the best judgment in the world. You're still going to go according to what your little 8-year-old wounded self needs. He's going to be running the show, not the adult, until it's fixed. And see, that's the other part, is when these kind of avoidant and anxious things happen, things can blow up at any moment. It's very tense. So the unpredictability leaves you not knowing when the next disconnect will be. That makes you even more hypervigilant, because now you're super sensitive, But for the avoidant, there's a constant pressure and threat of shame, and they just live like that. They just live like, yeah, I could be shamed at any moment, because inside there's a lot of shameful things. That's the message they get as a kid. And when they get older and they start getting intimate feelings, they become utterly bewildered. What am I supposed to do with these? Someone's trying to get close to me. Because it's activating that core wound. And those are the core wounds you have to discover. And so the minute like the anxious person is craving more attention, the avoidant will immediately think, oh, I'm doing something wrong. I'm not competent. She's telling me, or he's telling whatever, she's telling me that I'm not giving her enough attention. I'm not loving her right. I don't have what it takes. I am a bad lover. And feels shamed. I'm telling you, the avoidant person is just a ball of shame. And they go into denial, because to touch the shame would be obliterating. People don't realize, psychologists will say shame is unbearable, the worst pain. People go through physical, that. Instead of like having to experience shame, they do the most insane things, And that's what an avoidance has to do with. So you're like, I need more attention. They hear like, oh, you're criticizing me. I'm not man enough. I'm not enough. I'm not enough for you. So all of a sudden, that person just feels rejected. Oh, you just rejected me, and you're just asking for a little more attention. How are you supposed to navigate that? So that message kind of comes quickly. They're rejecting me, and it's automatic. And you really can't control it, because that message is not coming from her or him. It's not coming from the situation. That's coming from a wound years and years ago. That's the smoke you see, but the fire is not in that relationship. The fire is the relationship you have with that wounded child. The problem with the avoidant is that intimacy as a threat. And this threat would expose them to enormous pain. They went years and years without having their emotions acknowledged. These emotions got swept over. They're never articulated. They're never talked about. And it's huge. It's a reservoir. We're talking years. And you want to open that up? It's like taking a knife to someone. I mean, really, if you want to open up an avoidant, you're going to find a lot of darkness. And his sense of self, an avoidant always overcompensates. So he's like super, he's like very, avoidants are very attractive usually because they don't need anyone. They're not needy. Usually they have healthy self-esteem. They might have negative opinions of others. Oftentimes they do, to protect their own self-esteem. But they have a pretty positive sense of self. And to going from like, I'm a pretty good guy, I'm independent, I do everything great, to I'm an insect that's barely human and didn't even deserve my parents' love. It's a big fucking fall. That's a big, wide gulf for someone to travel. Perhaps it sounds like I'm exaggerating. And indeed, I'm talking about some extreme cases, but I don't think so. I don't think so. I think what pain would have a man avoid all intimacy, the sex, the real intimacy for 80 years, for all his life? I don't know. I think it would have to be pretty strong, Hey, sorry about that. I need a little interruption. But I was saying that, so the wounded child parts of the anxious person and the wounded child parts of the avoidance are clashing. And believe it or not, it's almost like they have like contracts. Like the anxious person, it's unconscious. The anxious person will have like a little contract, like, listen, I'll let you make all the decisions if you'll stay with me. And that'll just be like an unconscious, and the avoidant will take that. Avoidant will just naturally, I make all the decisions, and that's what's supposed to be. And that'll be kind of contract. And if she wants to make, or he wants to make some more decisions, they'll flip out. Like, oh, that's a contract, though. This is the deal. I will stay with you as long as you do X, Y, and Z. Essentially, these wounded child parts, they're just going to keep on holding to the past until they're healed. That emotional charge just will not go away. Because we are energetic beings, and this is a lot about flowing energy, talk about attunement to each other, that energetic flow. It's hard to flow when the energy is trapped in the past without being able to be released. And it builds over time. And it results in big emotional outbursts. And you're confused. Where's this coming from? They're confused. Yeah. So that's the struggle to access the self, the higher self, get kind of a connection to this, because that's the connection to our intuition and to our innate sense of knowing when something's right or wrong with us. How are you supposed to know if this is right or wrong? People are so alienated from themselves. The avoidant person's just cut off. The anxious person's not even looking at themselves, just staring at the other person. Is this right or wrong? That depends on how they react. They tell me. That's how I make my decisions. And to do that, you're going to be using the other person, using them, that sense. I'm not talking about happiness, like, oh, do I feel happy in this relationship? People ask that all the time, like, I don't know if I'm happy. Does this feel right? Does it feel right? And stop before you start thinking, does it feel right? And deep down inside. So you can choose. You're going to choose a mate to help you fix yourself, to help you fix that internal brokenness, rather than choosing someone who'll open you up to grow. You're just going to use that person as a fix, and that person, the anxious person, becomes deeply dependent on the other partner. And of course, as he or she gets more and more dependent, the avoidant gets more and more burdened and depressed. and feels like, for an avoidant, this feels like I'm being attacked. She's like, I would like to love you. And he's like, no, this is, you're trying to invade me. You're trying to control me. This independence is what they survived with, or else their mother would have just gone right into their boundaries. There's no privacy for an avoidant. He's not really enough of a person. I mean, people you respect and you have dignity and you give privacy, that person didn't experience that growing up. And the exquisite pain felt by the avoidant is that deep down inside, they want to reach out and touch someone, but it's so dangerous. Their heart is in a metal box that has spikes on it, and good luck trying to get near it. You're going to get hurt, It's hard. It's hard. And that kind of leads into the anxious avoidant dance. And it's kind of a sympathetic activation. It's like the most screwed up symphony. I mean, it's exquisite. You're just bouncing off each other, but the music it makes is like from hell. It's exciting. It's exciting. It's very, frantic, When the avoidant pulls away, that proves to the anxious person that they're in love. Like, oh, I knew it. I knew I was in love. When look, they're pulling away. Boom, that activation comes up. I'll always be abandoned. Always. That's where these thoughts come from. I have to make them stay. I can't trust them. And I also have to make them stay. This person will not love me. And also it's vital that they not leave me. But those are the two messages. And they come together. Like, one, I know I'm not worth this. Two, I need him though, even though he can't give me what I need. He makes you feel worse, he or she, it doesn't matter, And for the avoidant though, their parents didn't offer the capacity for co-regulation, so that secure connection never got built. But since this connection is a biological impairment, it's biological, it's actually stronger than hunger. Stronger than hunger. They did. I did a video on this about like the different monkeys. The monkey can choose a wire mother with milk and food, or a cloth around the wire mother with nothing. They can starve to death, but have a warm mother, or they can get food with this metal mother. Man, let's starve to death just for some warmth. Half the people I know run to hell to get in. Why? Because they're freezing. They're freezing emotionally. And that hell can be heroin addiction or whatever it is. But at least it's warmth. It's something, It's a push against them. They can feel something, So the avoidant person puts away all emotional support because there's that enormous well of pain inside where comfort and their legitimate needs were never met. And the anxiously attached people come try to pull them out. Come here, tell me, And the avoidant person is fighting for their life or death, because all this emotional attention threatens to open up that well of pain. And usually that well of pain is almost completely out of awareness. So their inner world is screaming. And actually, Jessica Baum uses this, is screaming the warning. If you let this person in, you will die of the pain inside you. That's a quote from her book. But I read that and I was like, yeah, that's exactly how it is. The thing that you need most, love, is the thing that'll destroy you. If you're anxious, think how that must be for an avoidant. If you're avoidant, that's hell. I think Dostoevsky said hell was the inability to love. That doesn't mean you don't have love in you. That doesn't mean you don't have love to give. That means that there's a process that frustrates it. It frustrates you. Trying something short circuits, and that can leave kind of this feeling of almost impotence. So, for an anxious person, the first thing they do is they try and make contacts. They send a text, and then say they don't get a text back. Now comes the protest behaviors. Those protest behaviors. The empty threats, threatening to leave, angry blaming, trying to guilt the partner to stay, tantrums. I mean, this is the 8-year-old flipping out and freaking out, cheating. That happens a lot. I know tons of people cheat to get their partner's attention. It does get their attention. It does do that. So I won't badmouth it. It does do that. What does the avoidant do? Okay, the avoidant doesn't text back. Okay, so that's the first stage. And the next, he doesn't really protest, but he has elimination behaviors. So the avoidant will start pointing out flaws. Like, you ever been talking to an avoidant and they don't text back, right? And maybe you bring it up or something, and all of a sudden, instead of dealing with it, they'll just start pointing, well, you have X, Y, and Z wrong with you, just flaw. You are needy. You probably are. But that's no excuse for them. Then they just ghost or they just break up. An anxious person activates, an avoidant contracts, like a turtle just in its shell, whereas an anxious person is like an octopus. And an octopus and a turtle do not make a cute couple. Just biologically, I don't know what the kid would look like. It actually might look pretty cool. I don't know. I'm not a biologist. But one of the big things is that this mixture is just very, very seductive. I mean, if you've ever been in one of these relationships, they're electric. They're electric. Is he going to leave me? Is she going to leave me? Now she went to her mother's, now this, now that, and you don't know, and they did call back. Whew, the sex is out of this world, and it's amazing. And if you're anxiously attached, probably all your relationships are like that. And you think that's chemistry. That's chaos. That's actually signs that your attachment system's being awakened, that your wounds are being prodded. I mean, let's just get real. I mean, this is just for a second, let's just get real. You want a lasting connection. That's what you want. You don't want to get laid. I don't know anyone who does. I know people want love. I mean, at the end of the day, let's just stop bullshitting. Like that's what you want. And to have that, you have to have safety. To have a lasting connection. And most likely, if you're anxiously attached, you think that is not sexy. You need those sparks and that chaos. I do get that. Like, I get that. And, because it's hard to find that spark. You can have great passion, but I'm telling you, the anxious avoidant, it's like hysterical. Your dopamine, endorphins, you're crushed. Now he's leaving. Now he's here. I mean, like, you can't, that's like a roller coaster. I mean, you're like speedballing love at that point. But I will say that safety is sexy, just because, and this is true, when you're looking for real eroticism, this is playfulness, it only happens in a place of real safety, which means I can open up and be silly and make mistakes, and you're not going to leave me. I'm safe that you're not going to leave me. And when you can do that, you can really be in the moment. That takes emotional risk, which is frightening. It's frightening, opening up. And if you don't do that, you probably take a lot of physical risk. I know a lot of avoidance are into like dominate. I've done tons of dominatrix women because stuff, or a lot of sex workers, and they tell me these are wonderful women, by the way. I mean, when I say brilliant, like these are like sex workers. Some of these girls have PhDs. That's not a joke, okay? Because during the sex work, you can get a little bit of closeness, but not really. It's not real intimacy, That's not really exciting. I mean, it's not really. What's really exciting is, but it takes some time, and it can be I'll just be honest, it can be very boring. So many anxiously, people get into a secure relationship, and they're like, yeah, this is boring. They like the chaos, like the crazy. Stick with it, just stick with it. Because that intimacy, instead of being crazy, the passion has to be there, but it can deepen as time goes on. And what's erotic is being seen. You've looked in someone's eyes, and it's just, you're looking in them, they're looking in your eyes. I mean, that's what it's about. Shared experiences, things like that. The next video, I'll go into the healing. But the healing is going to be parts work, perfect nurturers, getting in touch with that self energy. It's going to be getting a secure self. But it's remarkable that people from different walks of life have all come to the exact same conclusion. Like, you got these inner children, if you want to call them that, or parts, whatever you want to call them. They're wounded. They need to be witnessed. You need to be healed. You're not going to get anywhere without that. I wish that wasn't true. Believe me, I just work on this planet. I don't make the rules up. So I appreciate if you guys have any ideas, maybe you disagree or had different experiences, I would appreciate if you left some comments. So thank you. Bye.